Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this week's live stream. As you can see, we have a special guest, a familiar face to many of you on this podcast, and also those of you who watch News on UK column as well. Welcome, David Scott. It's great to have you with us again.
It's lovely to be back with you, Richard.
And we've got plenty to talk about tonight, that's for sure. Now, we have another guest who just disappeared before we were about to start, but he's back in his seat now. Niall, welcome as well.
Hello.
Now, we're going to start off with a bit of news from the streets because obviously the Scottish Family Party at the moment, our focus is on the Rutherglen and Hamilton West by-election. And it's been all action. We've been on the high street.
You can say that again.
We've been knocking on doors. We're just getting warmed up, but we've been doing a lot already. So, Niall, tell us about it. How's the week been on the campaign trail?
Well, the week's been fantastic. So, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, we've been doing street stalls on Rutherglen High Street. We've been acquainting ourselves with the locals. We've been sort of dominating the high street in terms of campaigning. We've had a lot of great reactions, a lot of mixed reactions, I would say. But on the whole, I would say probably 10 to 1 people coming up, shaking their hands, and you've got that, that odd percentage that are just disgusted with. There's this one sign in particular that we've got, it says a man can't become a woman simple. And this seems to be unbelievably triggering people as they walk past. And they're just hurling abuse at us when they see it. It's the confrontation of truth. It's like truth meets. It's hard to say what's happening to these people, but as soon as they see the truth, the reaction is rather wild, to say the least. We've had people say, "My niece is trans." They've shouted at us. Things like that. And, well, this is exactly what we're trying to combat here. So we've had a mixed response. I think on the whole, it's been fantastic. We've been utterly inundated by people wanting to hand out leaflets on our behalf. So it's interesting that, SNP and there's the Labour, they've got all these activists that we know are paid. None of our people are paid. In fact, they're giving us their precious time to help us in this campaign, which is I can't thank them enough. But this is the difference between a grassroots movement and a paid activist base. And I'll tell you, some of the it was interesting when I was going around collecting signatures for my ballot paper that I submitted today. Everything went fine, but I was like, what am I going to say to people who get this signature? And I'm saying, well, hello, my name's Niall Fraser. I'm running in the this by-election for Rutherglen Hamilton West. And they say, oh, what party are you running for? I said, well, the Scottish Family Party. But you don't necessarily need to support me in order to sign this paper. It's just a box-ticking exercise. And they said, are you SNP? Absolutely not. And give me the paper. Give me the give me the paper. And my wife's in the next door, and she'll sign it as well. So I mean, this is the reaction we're getting on the street. I can't believe the stories that the SNP are putting out there.
The SNP. I mean, I've interacted with them on Twitter, which is safer. But the SNP in Rutherglen and elsewhere, they're putting out tweets, and it's all happy selfies of the team out canvassing, and it's all great response. The SNP, here we all are. Look at us smiling. Everything's going well, right? But if you look at it now, usually the comments are locked. So people can't reply. And if the comments aren't locked, you just have to look at them. It's just a wall of derision.
Yes.
Right? I mean, there's unpopular and there's the SNP, and they've gone past the unpopular. They're heading towards irrelevance if they're not careful. But the amount of people who just loathe everything they stand for is really striking.
Yeah. I mean, I'm seeing that directly on the doors, David. I can't agree with you anymore. I mean, that wasn't even one instance. That was numerous times I only had to get 10 signatures from electors, but at least 2 or 3 of these electors said, "Are you SNP? No, give me the paper now." It was outrageous, the reaction I was getting. So people, like you're saying, they've moved past derision into loathe. The people are starting to loathe them. I think they're almost at the point of irrelevancy, David. People just, I think at this point you would have to be a total mug in order to give your vote to the SNP. At this point, I mean that's what I'm hearing on the doors as well.
Yeah, just one story from when we were knocking on doors. Niall and I were in this sort of pleasant residential street.
Oh,
and a man came chasing after us in his car
yeah,
at a very high speed.
Yeah.
And he, not quite, but almost screeched to a halt next to us, wound his window down, and he held out the leaflet and said something like, "I've never read anything so brilliant in my life." This is absolutely fantastic.
It was only going to go one way or the other, wasn't it?
We thought we were going to get it thrown at us.
Yeah.
Love what you're doing.
I just have to come and tell you, this is so brilliant.
Yeah.
But then he said, "I'm going to have to vote Labour, though, obviously."
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, unfortunately, that is the truth, Richard. That is the truth. And I'll tell that story over and over again because it's so funny. It's like we're expecting our leaflet to be thrown at us. And he did race up behind us, screech right next to us. Windy comes flying. "Is this your leaflet?" "Yes. Love what you're doing." "But I can't vote for you because I need to vote Labour in order to get the SNP out," which is it's a common sentiment that we're facing, Richard, isn't it? Is that people are unwilling. I say it's down to the courage of voting differently outside the established parties. It doesn't take that much courage to do it, but this is what we're facing: is this the clinging on to an establishment party system that has never worked for us. You know, Labour's
the system's broken.
Yeah.
The system's broken. And I've been saying to a few people that it's not just one election that counts. A small party, the more votes we get this time, the more people will vote for us next time than the time after. And then you get to the point where you break through and you get people elected. So there's no such thing as a wasted vote. It all builds up.
And you might find that the belief that it's going to be really tight and we need to vote Labour in order to get rid of the SNP, that might wane. I mean, I'm just looking at the polls here, and Labour are at 58%, and the SNP are maybe something like 33%. So it doesn't look close.
Well, I mean,
the polls are right.
We are playing to win. You know, I didn't. If I thought I had no chance, I wouldn't have entered the race. I think I've got a chance of absolute victory here, and I think they'll avoid all debates. They won't be able to handle a debate, so there'll be no shows at hustings, no shows at debates, and I think people are really quite getting behind our campaign, Richard, as we've seen on the street. Everyone's saying, I think you'll be very surprised at the level of support you're getting. Because we're the talk of the town. Exactly. We've not even started yet. I made a tweet there now. We've just taken the kiddie gloves off now that everything's official, and now we're going to really go to town on them. Yeah,
we've had that. Can you see this, David? This is one of our. We've done a couple of leaflets encouraging the electorate to reject extremism, because a couple of particularly egregious extremist candidates standing, one for the Lib Dems and one for the Greens.
Yeah.
So we're saying that the Lib Dems are the party of death. Then on the back, it explains their policies of full decriminalisation of abortion and assisted suicide. So we've done one for the Lib Dem candidate and one for the Green candidate. We're awaiting a response from them at the moment. But yeah, I mean, Lib Dems, everyone thinks they're the cosy, cuddly, middle-of-the-road, inoffensive types. But their policies are just evil. So we're trying to remind people of that.
So their candidate is Gloria Adebo.
Yes.
Adebo. Have you met her?
I haven't met her. No, we haven't seen it. We haven't seen any of the parties, have we? We haven't seen any of them.
I've seen the Scottish Socialists. But again, people are coming up to us saying, don't go speak to the Scottish Socialists. They're really obnoxious. And I'm like, no, that can't be true. And I'll go and speak to them myself. And right enough, as soon as I walk up to them, don't bring your bigotry over here, Niall. And I'm like, all right, okay, thank you. Bye. So I mean, this is what you're faced with. I think people are incapable of winning hearts and minds, but they're so entrenched in their beliefs, especially the socialists, but they're being really obnoxious to people on the street. And you think that's not a way to win votes and curry favour with people. It's just horrible.
Now, another interesting encounter. I won't be specific here because that wouldn't be appropriate. But Niall and I and David Richards as well, we did go and give out some leaflets at the local mosque.
Yes,
we had quite a few conversations. Now, without going into detail or naming names or anything, let's just say there's quite a lot of there wasn't much warmth for Hamza Yousaf. Let's put it that way.
No,
people were saying he's completely abandoned his principles. What he argues for, what he says, has absolutely nothing to do with what Muslims believe. That we thought when he first got elected that maybe he's going to be some use, but now we realise he's just completely sold out.
Yeah, I think I was shaking hands with Imam, and he's basically saying Hamza Yousaf is going against his own ethics. He's going against Islamic teachings, and this is the way he's viewed by the mosque. And his main concern with directing votes my way was, please don't change your mind and walk back your principles. I said that's never going to happen. Never going to happen. So I think the mosque have found a person to finally vote for. Again, it's this political homelessness that we're all sort of shrouded under. If you had a politically homeless tent in Scotland, it would be overflowing. The amount of people on the street, and like another tale for the street is this couple came up to me and said they had been spoiling ballots for the last 10 years. They were writing none of the above under the candidates and spoiling ballots purposely, and now they say thank God we don't need to do that anymore. We've got you to vote for. So I mean, this is the thing. I'm not targeting people who are always voting all the time. I want people who have given up on the political system, and want almost revenge against the political class. This is what we're going after, and we will wage war on corruption. This is what I'm promising.
The Muslim position on this could be very interesting because there's quite a sizable part of the Muslim community in Glasgow and the surrounding area that are thoughtful and well read on both their own faith and also its political implications. And they've not been fooled by Hamza the way he can maybe fool the majority or the SNP mainstream amongst the Indigenous Scots, because he plays this strange game. I'm a minority. I'm downtrodden because I'm Muslim. I'm from Pakistan. My family's from Pakistan. I got a different color skin, therefore I'm oppressed. And this is such an important part of my identity. Meanwhile, he ignores everything that Islam says about everything and adopts wokeism as his religion. So you think, well, okay, right, this is obvious hypocrisy. Why does nobody call him out on it? But if he's going to be called out on it, it will probably be from the Muslim community in West Central Scotland.
Absolutely. And who better to call them out, David? This is the thing. It feels like it would have to be the mosque in order to call him out on this. I think we wouldn't be able to call him out on this. They would just claim, no, you don't know what you're talking about. But I mean, coming from his own community is so powerful. And to hear it coming from the Imam was wild. To say that, we had such a warm reception. And it's the first time I'd ever stepped foot in a mosque. And it was really interesting. And I'll probably go back and investigate a wee bit further. But yeah, it was what a warm reception we received, Richard, wasn't it? It was fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got a question here. I'll have a first stab at it. So why should someone for the Scottish Family Party instead of defaulting to Labour? Because my answer to that personally was the first thing I've got to decide when deciding who to vote for is which parties does my conscience allow me to vote for. So from my point of view, a party whose policy is to continue the killing of unborn children, it's unconscionable. So they're out of they're off the list already. So I then look at the parties who are left to decide which one to vote for. That's my principle there. So it's not a sort of lesser of two evils things. It's unconscionable to vote for them. But if you look at it from a tactical point of view, every vote in an election makes a difference. Because if the family, however many votes a party gets, people look at it and they think that's a measure of the support. So let's say, the Conservatives, the SNP look at the Conservatives and think, oh, the Conservatives are doing really well. And they look at the Conservative policies and they'll think, oh, we'd better watch out. They're getting too many votes off us. We need to shift a bit in their direction just to take the wind out of their sails. So that's what would happen. So as the other parties see the Scottish Family Party continuing to rise, they'll start thinking, now we've got a problem here. We've got to start covering these people off. Whereas if you say, oh, I'll vote Labour because they're the best chance of beating them, you might think, then that's never going to happen. We're going to stay in the rut we're in. As long as people just keep voting for these same parties, we'll keep heading in the same direction. So it's not just a matter of what happens at this election, it's a more long-term thing as well. That's what I'd say in any case. Any other?
I think it's an amazing question. The thing is, again, it's this best of the bad bunch mentality. I mean, where I'm from in Fife, it used to be Labour through and through because it was deemed the working class party. And now that they've completely forsaken the working class, I think they shouldn't be given a second run at it. They shouldn't be given a fresh start. What they're saying, it's absolutely comical. Labour going around saying, let's have a fresh start. It is absolutely comical in the extreme. And people are getting called out on social media for it. But I understand the importance of defeating the SNP in this election. I understand the importance of this. And that's why people are saying, let's vote Labour in order to get the SNP out. But the SNP are dying on the vine. They're gone, like David said earlier on, they're approaching irrelevancy. They're so loathed. Just chap the doors and ask. It's incredible. And then you've got people on the street coming up to us and say, oh, the SNP were canvassing and I told them where to go. I was walking past the SNP campaign office. It's like a ghost town. We walk past it. All the windows are boarded up. You can't see inside. There's no... what goes on in there? I don't know. Are they just storing it as a leaflet storage facility? I don't know, because there's no... they don't want to interact with the public, these people. They really don't. I think they think they're above, the working class. I truly do. Whereas I'll rub shoulders with anyone.
They've lost the public.
Yeah.
I remember the 2014 referendum. I went along to Alex Salmond's big speech on the eve of the poll. It was in Arbroath, declaration of Arbroath. It was in a church hall. It was in a church, and then there was tea and bickies in the church hall. Now, the organisers had already clocked me because I'd been to several meetings and asked some questions, and I wasn't going to get to ask a question at that one. But I went in for tea and bickies with the great and the good, and there was no security that I could see. They knew they were safe in Scotland, even though they were trying to, do something that was very radical. There was an acceptance within the country of we're going to have a vote, and then that's what we'll do, right? Democracy. There was an acceptance of that they'd earned the right to have the vote, they'd earned the right to have this tested because they had won these elections, and they felt very safe in amongst the Scottish public, right? Now, after their now how long have they been in power now? It's 2007, 16 years or something. After their 16 years in power, they no longer feel safe in the Scottish public because the Scottish public loathe them. That's what they've done with their time in office. They've turned themselves from a party that people might not have agreed with, but no one felt particularly aggressive towards, and they were quite safe being very open in the Scottish public. When I got a ticket for this thing, I wasn't supporter of independence. I wasn't a supporter of the SNP. I could go along and I could go and have tea and biscuits with them after the event. That was like most of the cabinet was in there. Nicola wasn't there for some reason, but most of the rest of them were. And you wouldn't get that now. Everything's locked up tight. They don't want to know about interaction with the public because the public have got questions they can't answer.
Yeah, I mean, another instance of that. I mean, I just say I was electing Richard or even yourself, David, as First Minister tomorrow. Would you like to have to skulk around as the First Minister in Scotland? I tried to, not accost. I tried to find Hamza Yusuf as he was going into his big speech in Dundee just a few months ago in the Caird Hall. Didn't he come in the front entrance? Oh, no. He was driven up in a car and brought in the back entrance so that nobody seen him. And this is, I couldn't do that. I would be physically sick if I was have to be scuttled in and skulking around as an elected member, or even as the First Minister as he is. I think it's just shocking. Absolutely shocking.
I remember seeing an interview with Ian Smith, the last Premier of Rhodesia, talking about what had happened to his country since majority rule and Mugabe had taken over. He said, well, it's like this. If Robert Mugabe and I went for a walk at night in Harare, only one of us is coming out alive, and it's not him. Right? And that was the degree to which that populist movement had descended into tyranny and oppression and was loathed by its own population, and violently so.
Yeah.
And I mean, in one way, it's sad to see Scotland come to this because it's become much more fractious. It's much more divisive. The reaction you're getting, a lot of love and some absolute hatred, and not much in between, might be a sign of that.
Yeah.
And that's obviously that's one of the things that the SNP has done to our tolerant, content, at peace with itself country.
I think we're maybe perhaps a bit too honest, Richard. Maybe we should be saying that we're just sunshine and rainbows on the streets of Rutherglen. But no, of course, this isn't the way of it. I mean, you're going to get people who are totally against what you're trying to accomplish. But I mean, just to paint it, I mean, like you said, you've got the SNP canvassers and the Labour canvassers, and not a bad word was said in the doors. Not a bad word. It didn't happen.
The other amazing thing is that when they knock on the doors, what people say are always the top things of their campaign. just amazing.
Yeah,
they're just reinforced. Man, having said that, I mean, someone came up to me in the street the other day. We've got a lot of this, like, a man can't become a woman type stuff. And he said, you only seem to have one policy. So I said, if you're on the street, we can't put a whole 60 pages of manifesto up on a billboard. So I said, we've got lots of policies. But what I had a good mind to say to him, well, if we've only got one policy we're putting forward, that's one more than all the other parties.
Yeah.
If you look at like the Labour campaign, all they're saying is we need a fresh start. We'll put your priorities first. We're going to try and sort out the problem. And the SNP
change you can believe in.
Yeah, it is contentless. It is utterly contentless.
Yeah.
So if it was true that we only had one policy, as I say, it would put us in the lead, policy-wise, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it's again, I don't want to make it a one-issue thing, but again, this gender ideology is bedding and permeating itself right across the West, or it has done for the last 10 years or so. And the good people of Rutherglen and Hamilton West have the chance to destroy this insidious lie that you can change sex on behalf of the entire world, almost. I don't think the people of Rutherglen and Hamilton West know just how important they are. And for me, this would send shockwaves around the whole world. One, we would make history twice. And then Scotland could lead the way again. Somebody needs to be leading the way against this gender ideology. Why not Scotland?
Why not, indeed? Just looking at what happened in previous elections, 2019, Margaret Ferrier was 44%, Labour 34%, Conservatives 15%, 8,000 votes.
And then UKIP after that.
Liberal Democrats 2,800, then UKIP 629. All right, so there must be a fair amount of the Conservative and UKIP votes, plus the people who didn't vote or spoiled the ballots, etc., that you could be gunning for. UKIP peaked at 1,300 back in 2015. The Conservatives peaked at nearly 10,000 in 2017 in recent years. So there's a lot that's beyond the Labour SNP standoff who will be finding it very difficult to vote, because they would have known in all of those elections that it was going to be a Labour or an SNP win in all likelihood. But there's still, in 2017, you still got 10,000 people voting for either UKIP, an independent, or the Conservatives.
Mm-hmm.
So there's certainly a sizable number of people who are not going to be turned off to the idea that, let's do something a bit different here.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that was great to hear. As I say, with the campaign, we're just getting warming up. We have all sorts of ideas for things we're going to do. So watch this space. Momentum's going to build and build. We're talking about having a rally at some point. We'll try and sort out a venue and a time for that, so we can start letting people know that we're meeting as soon as we can. We've got other ideas as well. So stay tuned to see what's happening. Right. So we're going to leave Rutherglen and Hamilton West now, and we're going to go to Germany, because David has some stories to tell about goings on in Germany, which you might
find the need for a shower after listening.
Oh my God.
Right. So this I first came across this in a your Substack blog, headed 2 German childcare centres in North Westphalia issue child sexuality manifestos, waxing poetic about the benefits of masturbation and outlining the rules for child sexual play. Now, I had an interaction. I was doing an anti-war speech in Glasgow Green a few weekends ago, and one of the people in the crowd was handing out leaflets about the sexualization of children and what was being taught in the schools, and got some pushback from a couple of passers-by who were quite aggressively, "Oh no, you've got to teach your children this. This is healthy. This is the right thing to teach the children." And she said, "I'm just astonished that people believe that." So I went over to have a chat with them. I said, "Well, do you know what they're doing in Germany?" And they basically said, "No, that's not true. That can't be true." Well, it is true. So this is St. Rochus Catholic Family Centre in Kerpen is one of the two. So the article starts, "A few of you have asked about reports of child sexual exploration rooms in German childcare centres where young people are encouraged to masturbate and touch each other. While I've no doubt that the field of child sexual pedagogy is unusually depraved, I suspected the reports were exaggerated or lacking in important context. In this, I was very wrong, and I've spent 6 hours exploring this very disturbing rabbit hole. I need a shower. You will too. Or maybe 10 showers." And it then goes through, what's actually been going on. So this was a policy that was established at several childcare centres. So you're talking kids from toddler 2, 3 up.
Oh wow!
Right. And it was published. The report was published in Welt, the German newspaper, who reported children should be able to withdraw into protected space to discover and satisfy themselves physically, proclaims a daycare centre in Kerpen. In its sexual education plan, the institution promises to offer children free space to experiment with their childlike sexuality. Masturbation is normal. Allowing masturbation in a daycare centre is of great importance. Now, they then went on to, they listed the rules for this room on this policy. And they sent this round parents. There was a bit of pushback. And there are rules. There are 10 rules, because it has to be 10. Each child decides for themselves whether and with whom they want to play physical and sexual games. Right? So we're talking toddlers. Right? They all must decide for themselves. All children, especially preschoolers, are aware of the places in the facility where nudity and body exploration can take place.
Wow.
All right? Now, this as a father and grandfather, this is This is grooming. This is child abuse. Well, there's more. Girls and boys pet and examine each other only as much as is comfortable for themselves and other children. No child hurts another. No child sticks anything into another child's body openings. The age gap of the children involved is at most 2 years. Older children, young people, and adults are not allowed to take part in the doctor games. All through this, they use that phrase. This is playing doctor.
Doctor games.
Which is nothing of the sort. You can say stop at any time and it will always be respected. Asking for help is not snitching. If there are not enough educational staff to ensure compliance with the rules, there may be restrictions on play, i.e. children are not allowed to go naked. So those are the rules. So they were digging more into this. And it's been reported in the Times, but the Times said it was banned and kind of missed the point because they went to the Youth Welfare Office, who apparently banned it. Now, the Youth Welfare Office in the areas which is run by, would you believe, the Green Party, they regarded regarding the handling of masturbation in these 2 daycare centres, they replied, sexual behaviour by children could not be prevented. The ministry emphasised that separate rooms solely for sexual exploration in daycare centres are not provided for, but they refused to intervene. The ministry told Velt that separate child exploration rooms would be forbidden by the Child Welfare Office. You can float all manner of crazy ideas and plans and programmes, but not in reality. Now, that sounds like it was crushed, and that's the way that the Times reported it, but that's not quite the story. Because what they actually did is they went to an expert, right? You know when to be worried when you go to an expert, and they concluded with advice from the experts, specifically dedicated rooms for mutual sexual exploration are not permitted. Everything else, masturbation, sexualized doctor play, opportunities for developmental masturbation appear to remain on the menu. And the expert they went to basically concluded that the problem was lack of supervision, right? That you couldn't have this without enough supervision. So it wasn't wrong in it was the detail that was the problem.
Oh my!
Right, and the Times article didn't bring this out. So they said the body exploration room announced by daycare centre, run by the Workers' Welfare Association of Hanover, has been stopped. This is the previous one that tried the same thing. Has been stopped by the Youth Welfare Office. According to the Office, the paedagogical plan in this form endangers child welfare and is unsupportable. Right, but the reason they were saying it was unsupportable is that it wasn't under direct adult supervision. Now, the expert was a guy called Jörg Maywald. So they then went through, and there's 3 or 4 daycare centres in Germany have got similar policies. And they all use the same words, right? They all support masturbation. They all talk about playing doctor. And they use the same sort of language. So they started to dig in where the language came from. And it transpires it's come from a common source. This same expert, Jörg Maywald, and he wrote the book they're all basically copying from, right? So the expert that's saying it's not on is the expert that actually wrote the book. So
it's a hard read, David, I'm sure.
So they go on and in his book, one of the conclusions is children are sexual beings from birth and have a sense of pleasure, which they like to act out because it's fun, feels good, and can sometimes be comforting. What we teach children is that masturbation is an intimate matter and must take place in a safe and personal setting. So they're teaching masturbation to 2, 3, 4, 5-year-old kids. This is grooming. And all of this came from the same book. It's a 2013 book by this expert, Jörg Maywald, called Sexual Education in the Child Care Centre, Protecting, Strengthening and Guiding Children. It's in German. I haven't read it, but it does exist. It's on, if you read German, you can get a copy. It's on Amazon in German. And it includes an entire chapter on playing doctor or sexual assault. And he seems to be very interested in this. Now, that's the story that grabbed me. I thought, well, that's just horrendous. But of course, it's not the only case of this that's come out of Germany. I remember something, we reported on this some years ago. And I found the original article, 2009, German government publication promotes incestuous paedophilia as healthy sex education. This one they had to pull. This came from Berlin state government. Booklets from a subsidiary of the German government's Ministry of Family Affairs encourage parents to sexually massage their children as young as 1 to 3. 2 40-page booklets entitled Love, Body and Playing Doctor, there's that phrase again, by the German Federal Health Education Centre, so it's federal, as aimed at parents. A quote from it, and this is where you really will need a shower: fathers do not devote enough attention to the clitoris and vagina of their daughters. Their caresses too seldom pertain to these regions, while this is the only way that girls can develop a sense of pride in their sex. So this is advocating paedophilia, and it's openly done. Now, they had to pull this because such was the outrage over this. But it had all the same things. It had unlimited access to masturbation, no shameful parts of the body, no limitations on the sexualization of children at all. And this seems to be a pattern in Germany. So I had a little dig as to what else has been going on in Germany. Mm-hmm. Are you ready? It gets worse.
Yeah.
Do you know what the Kendler experiment was?
I think if did they send 30,000 kids to live with paedophiles? Is that right?
It wasn't 30,000. It was a small number, but you're right. This is what they did. They sent children. It was basically children who were homeless. So it's very vulnerable, mostly teenagers. Starting in 1916, Berlin welfare authorities handed over the care of at least 3 homeless teenagers to Dr. Helmut Kendler, a sex researcher from Hanover. He placed the youths with known paedophiles, including one who already had a criminal record for child abuse, believing that it would give troubled teens a social anchor while giving the paedophiles a chance to become caring foster parents. He later reported to the Berlin Parliament, the Berlin Senate, that this had been a tremendous success. Berlin's Youth Affairs Minister, Sandra Scheers, didn't mince her words when she presented the report. It was a crime to put these people in this kind of care. It's simply unimaginable that something like this happened with state oversight. And if you want to know more, there's a long-form article on this by Rachel Aviv in the New Yorker magazine, The German Experiment that placed foster children with paedophiles. And I won't quote from that because it's a substantial piece of work. But it's very, very troubling. And just to finish off on this, the Green Party in Germany are having to investigate the backing that they gave to paedophiles and paedophilia back in the 1980s in a manner that's very reminiscent of the Paedophile Information Exchange in our own country, which is,
Yes.
Within the political system, particularly the Labour Party, but it wasn't limited to just that. All the mainstream parties seem to have some problem in this area. So the point of this is that here you see Germany, right? This is the leading country in the EU. This is certainly a political leader in European terms, perhaps in cultural terms, certainly in economic terms. And they are doing the most horrendous things to children, all in the name of progressive political ideology. This is what drives it, or at least it's what gives it its excuse. And this is the same ideology that you're fighting, that we're fighting in our different ways. How far it has gained ground in Germany, and we have to push back so that it doesn't get to that position here.
Mm-hmm. Wow, David. I think you're right about the shower. I mean, I thought the rules. I thought the rules you were going to state was the first rule of Doctor Games is no one talks about Doctor Games. This is just insanity what we're seeing. And you're right, this is coming straight from the state. It's just incredible, isn't it? And the similarities are there to be seen if you want to see them between, the Green Parties, the LGBT Youth Scotland. If you don't know already, the then CEO of LGBT Youth Scotland was jailed for running Scotland's largest ever paedophile ring, which then led me to watch. I think you probably watch it on BBC iPlayer still as the Magic Circle disclosure that happened in Edinburgh, where it was members of the judiciary, where the guy, I think it's Robert Henderson, was abusing his own daughter, and he was sending her to other top lawyers to be abused as well, and a lot of them escaped justice, never to be heard of again. And then even if you go down this route as well, I've been talking to a guy who is a victim of ritual child abuse, which is just heinous. But then his contention is that it's causing a lot of the addiction issues, a lot of the alcohol issues, and a lot of the homelessness issues that we've got. I think the psychologists will call it obliviation, is what they call it when you're just trying to obliviate, you try to forget. But I mean, to the laymen, like people on the street, I mean, they're trying to outrun this memory of what happened to them, and it really is horrendous. And you wonder why Scotland's got the most drug deaths. Is this connected? You certainly hope not.
Yeah.
But I mean, I believe it is. It's a really heinous thing.
I think this sort of ideology, this comment here, a few people have mentioned the World Health Organization standards for sexuality education, where they say quite explicitly that children of all ages from birth are sexual beings. And I mean, there's been so many examples of it. I know the bloke who wrote the in charge of the sex education resources in Scotland, we need to break down the barrier between childhood and sexuality. When I was at Perth Pride the other week, talking to those drag queens, they're basically saying there's no such thing as sexualizing children. No matter what you do of a sexual nature, to or with or in front of children, you can't sexualize them. It's only if they choose to become sexual themselves. So there's no such thing as sexualizing children. This is widespread. I think most people don't say it. Who believe it don't say it. But you don't need to scratch the surface very far. That this is quite widespread, and I believe at the moment it's been restrained by societal revulsion. It gets squashed down and kept in the background, but it's waiting to rear its head in more and more ways. I mean, you said about the ritual abuse. There's a trial going on in Glasgow at the moment, isn't there? About
witchcraft.
Is it 30? I can't remember how many are accused. It's an eight.
I think it's 11. 3 have since perished or died. I don't know if they've taken their own lives before this court case has arisen. I see there's a comment there. What did you mean by ritual abuse? I'm not going to say that what happened to this guy because it's just really it's so graphic. But suffice it to say that he was abused in a graveyard setting. Let's just put it at that.
Yeah, and this is quite common. And if anyone, this is the hardest of hardcore topics, and it's the most brutal and the most vicious and the most heartbreaking. I had to do a talk, and all the talks I've done, the only one my wife refuses to listen to, I had to do a talk on this in London. I went down to a meeting just across from the Home Office, it was, in the middle of London, and to do a talk on that. And my wife can't listen to it. It's just not. It's too much. But if anyone does want to find out about it, we do have in Scotland one of the experts on this. It's a woman called Laurie Matthew, who runs several charities in Dundee, who specialise in helping people who have been the victims of ritual abuse. And she's written several books about it, and she's fought this for years. And she's extremely factual. And one of the books is essentially written by the victims themselves. It's their stories, and she's simply collated this, and that's very powerful stuff. So if anyone wants to know more, that's the best source I know of on the subject. One other thing I would throw in: James Rennie was not only chief exec, he was on the board and director of LGB Youth Scotland. Do you know who else was on the board with him and shared an office with him?
Do tell us.
None other than Martin Henry, who ran the SFA's inquiry into child sexual abuse in Scottish football.
Yeah.
Which I thought was an interesting choice.
Interesting indeed.
So did we not find someone who'd not shared an office with the biggest paedophile we've ever had in Scotland to run that inquiry? Is that the only guy we had?
Yeah.
I found that a bizarre choice, but there we go. That's the nature of what we're amongst.
Yeah.
Such a dark subject, isn't it?
David, I don't know if you're familiar with it's a video I made a while ago. I managed to sneak into an online training session for teachers of pupils with special needs, severe special needs. And they were talking about basically what you can do to help the children to masturbate, what devices you might like to consider providing them with in this cause. It was quite shocking. I was amazed and appalled by it. This training wasn't by some sort of odd fringe group. It was Education Scotland training. And I thought that should have been a real story. Again, that should have been a media story. But the media in Scotland somehow
won't touch it.
They won't touch it. Yeah. Just something related to this. I mean, I went to see the film Sound of Freedom the other week. I thought it was a good film. But the controversy around that, I just find it so hard to believe that a film about a sort of policeman who becomes a sort of vigilante hero, rescuing children from kidnap and abuse, and this film has become like politically polarizing. What is going on?
It's this weird predicament we're living in now. I just you see it's this push for the sexualization of kids just point blank now.
That film's been banned from one United States military base on the grounds that it's political and promotes QAnon conspiracy theories.
Wow.
All right, so this is the fact that they're reacting. It's like the poster that Kelly J. Keane put up that said woman, noun, adult human, female. Right, the poster wasn't used, but the reaction to it was very telling because people got completely triggered and complained, and that was news. The idea that film is political, that tells you everything you need to know about the nature of the political system.
Yeah, and yet they won't deem this LGBT doctrine that's in the schools a political doctrine. They won't categorize that as political at all, which I think we need to be pushing to make this thing a political movement, this LGBT plus, so we can take it out of the schools. We can scalp it out because the schools have got a responsibility to be apolitical, right? So if we can designate that a political movement, we can get it taken out. But it's an uphill battle all the way.
This has been some heavy stuff. Could I cheer you up? I'll try and cheer you up.
Please.
One of the things I covered on Monday was many wins. We actually we report more and more on victories these days in UK column news. It's always bad news, but actually these days it's not. So one of the wins we talked about was Texas Libraries Association told the American Libraries Association was completely captured by woke progressives. Sorry, we don't want to pay you to indoctrinate our children anymore. We're off. Bye. Right.
Yeah.
So that was good news. I tracked down the head of the American Libraries Association, Emily Drabinski, who is a self-confessed. She describes herself as a Marxist lesbian. So she was at an event called Socialism 2023.
Right,
now,
okay.
if you Google that, you can find the complete library because it's all online. And you can, if you've got stomach, because it goes for about 2.5 days, if you've got a sense of humor, because it's some of it's very funny. They don't mean it to be funny, it just is. And you actually want to find out what socialism is in 2023, go and watch it. Right? It's fascinating. So we had one particular piece was fighting for our lives. What do you think fighting for our lives was about? Abortion. Fighting for our lives, abortion and trans rights under attack, right? So this was a bizarre thing. Now, so I thought, right, I'll watch this one. So first of all, it's a small hall, right? It's a sort of, I mean, I'm at a major conference, the Scottish Family Party, you would outnumber them, I think, quite significantly. Point one. This is for the whole of America. This is in Chicago. Point two, they're all wearing masks, and there's a strict masking policy. The speakers are allowed to take their masks off to speak, but the people who ask questions from the floor are not, right? So they're all, right? So that was quite funny. And then up stood one woman who had a nice T-shirt that said, "Fund abortion, not police." Okay? So this is what you're up against. Now, this has got to be music to your ears, because this is what you're up against.
Yeah.
The Scottish National Party and the Labour Party are not saying this now, but this is what their activists believe and are pushing for.
Absolutely.
And you can point at this and say, it's them or us, you know,
Yeah.
pick. So fund abortion, not police. And up came Dr. Mary Kay Bowman, who is them nurse practitioner, an abortion provider, and an activist, and she describes herself as a speck of star stuff in an infinite multiverse. So that's
interesting. Aren't we all?
right? And she, so what she had to say was very interesting. Now, bear in mind, the radical left have captured every university, every teacher training college, more or less the whole of the education system, most of the political system, most of the local authorities, most of the state authorities, most of the civil service, right? It's the army, the navy, the air force, it's everywhere. What was her message? We are losing. These guys on the right, they believe that they are doing God's work to prevent abortion, and they've got techniques and arguments that are working. They're playing well in court. We're losing, and the general tone was one of panic.
Really?
Right? Despite all the stuff they've lost the argument, and they know it, and they're groping around for something. So they're trying to make up with, we must, work together and, support one another. But they don't have an argument.
Yeah.
And I thought it was really interesting, the tone of desperation, and the idea that they know that the people who have a very simple view, we serve God. God doesn't want the mass murder of the unborn. That is the most heinous crime that humanity has ever perpetrated in the history of humanity. And this is the history of humanity, right? We've not got a good record. And this is the worst we've ever done. And you know what? We are abolitionists. We are going to fight this, and we're never going to stop. And they don't know what to do, because these Christian guys, they won't give in.
Yeah.
And this it was a really interesting view. And there's also one called Sunday, Day School. I don't know why there's two D's. Sunday Day School, which was a socialist version of a gospel, of a Black American gospel meeting. It just didn't mention God, because you can't mention God. So they were talking about, the joy in the heart, but it was all very vague as to why it was there. That was quite funny too. Look this out, because you see what you're up against. It will encourage you, because these people are in trouble. They follow this ideology down a rabbit hole. It doesn't lead anywhere good, and they don't know what to do about it.
Yeah, I think there is I think on the pro-life issue, I think there is a sense of panic setting in. I mean, Hamza Yousaf always talks about, the attacks gaining in strength. I mean, part of me thinks, look, you're there in the government. I mean, virtually, every party in the parliament's agreeing with you, but they can still recognise, though, that something's changing.
Yes,
it's changing around the world. It's changing in Scotland, and there's tough times ahead for them. And we'll do our best to oblige.
Absolutely. I just have to say, David, I could listen to you for hours and hours. I always learn buckets of information listening to you. So, I mean, keep up the great work. It must be horrible having to read through all these reports and articles about what you've. But you're doing some incredible work, and I always learn so much. I mean, when we're talking about the grooming as well, I was. It reminds me that it's this Aristotle quote that I threw out on the street. It said, "Give me the boy until he was 7, and I will show you the man." And this is fundamental. And I said that to a woman who was saying, "Well, what would you say if you're a 6-year-old kid wanting to change gender?" I would say, "Don't be daft and go back and play, and just continue your day." And then I gave the sort of the analogy. She was in a group of like 3 people, and she was really going after me. She was trying to stick the ideological dagger in me, so to speak. And she says, "Well, they should be making up any decision at any age." And I'm saying, well, just say I'm walking down with my 3-year-old on my shoulders, and he's got a Rangers or Celtic kit on. Who's done that? Is he a Rangers or a Celtic supporter? This young boy or girl who can't speak? Absolutely not. So, I mean, their arguments fall apart at the faintest whiff of opposition, and we can only just keep going. And like you said, I would be panicking if you were on that side, David. You wouldn't be, wouldn't you? Because it's an unwinnable argument, and they've started off from the position of being unwinnable in the first instance. So,
if you dig in, there's a chap called James Lindsay. I've interviewed him on the UK column. He's fascinating, and he's producing, more content than you could ever wish for about what the ideology is that we're fighting. And he makes it very clear that this is a religion. Now, this James Lindsay he was one of the new atheist movement, right? And he's now surrounded by Christian guys on his side, right? So I'm not quite sure where he is on the journey to discover Christ as his personal savior. He's not there yet, but he's saying this is a religion, it's a false religion, and this is how it's selling, and it's in opposition to Christianity, and it's looking to replace Christianity. And he's very clear about this, but he explains how the system works, what the ideology is, and how it operates. And it's fascinating. Now, one of the aspects is it's about constant movement, because it basically, you've got the status quo, right? So that's your thesis, and they will come with something that's radical and to the left, and that's your antithesis. And then you merge them together and find the common point, and that becomes the new way forward. That immediately becomes the new status quo, and the situation that it continues again. So you then have something else further to the radical left. You merge those in. So everything's always moving left. One of the criticisms of the Conservative Party is they can't regain lost ground, right? Because everything's always moving to the left.
Yeah.
But the thing is, that is the process. That is their belief, right? You keep moving, and you're destroying. Every time you're destroying, you destroy. Eventually, the utopia, the perfect world, in which we all realize that we were really all gods all along, because this is Gnosticism, that's where it comes from, will eventually emerge. They don't know how to get there. It's a point of belief that if they destroy enough, eventually we'll have perfection, right? They have no idea. And if you understand that, some of the stuff that the SNP say make a lot more sense. They don't ever say where they're going, just that when we get there, it will be perfect. That's the line for independence. That's the justification for independence. You have a problem, independence will solve it. How? Details.
Yes.
We'll work out the details once we're independent. You just got to believe, brother. It's a religion, and it's selling nirvana, it's selling utopia, and they have no idea how it will work. They cannot justify it because their whole philosophy is that you never justify it. You just keep destroying and destroying and destroying. So they're trying to destroy the family. They're trying to destroy childhood. They're trying to destroy innocence. They're trying to destroy womanhood. They're trying to destroy everything.
Yes, well said.
Because that's their belief. And this gives us many things we can defend, many areas we can push back, because ultimately that's insanity. And that's what we're fighting. Oh, they're trying to destroy that as well. The definition between sane and insane. If you want to know more on that, watch the clip on that.
Yeah, but we'll do.
Right, that's brilliant. Fantastic. I've just got three things to mention very, very quickly. We're going to have very quick fire responses, if you like. The Scottish Government is increasing childcare, wants it to go down to 9-month-old children. And they want them to be like in childcare 5 days a week, like first thing in the morning till tea time. And meanwhile, they're wanting adults who work for the government or councils to work a 4-day week.
Yeah.
So the government wants 9-month-old babies to be in their institution for longer than it wants adults working, which is just, I often say, adults like children, children like adults. Well, it's now crossed over, actually. They're going the other direction. A quick response on that?
Well, it's a good point. And having your children more in the hands of the state's becoming a groomer and should be viewed as such.
Yep.
Well, it's right at the time where you would expect you want the child to be bonding with their parents as much as possible. And that is being interfered with, I think it's just abominable to start with. It's funny that you said they want children involved more than the actual working week for adults. It just goes to show where the focus is.
Yeah, they want them bonding with the state, not with mum. Right, next one, Glasgow. Some councillor or other was saying that the M8 through Glasgow should never have been built. It was a big mistake. So therefore, as a means of I don't know, making reparations or some sort of penance, we should have a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit on the M8 through Glasgow.
Yeah.
So that sounds stupid. It's going to happen within a couple of years, probably.
Yeah, having driven through Glasgow for the last 5-6 years, the M8 is a godsend at certain times of the day. Obviously, you get the 5 to 7 o'clock. Feel like junction 16 all the way to 20 all the time. It's just it's start stop. Imagine if it's 30 mile an hour. This is just going to crucify Glasgow. It's going to. I can't imagine what the businesses are feeling at the moment, and I feel for all the business owners that are probably at their wits' end, tearing their hair out. It's just it's never going to work.
I like the idea that look, see this central planning, and there's a pattern here, right? See the central planning, the stuff that we did for the past 50 years. Yeah, that was disastrous. So what you got to do, you got to trust our new central plan because it's going to save us from the effects of our previous central plan.
Yeah,
we're okay. Really? How about we have a society without a central plan and with many plans? How about you just leave us alone? Everyone knows the M8 was a bad idea, right? And it was part of a bad idea that was being promoted by every organ of the state at the time. And many beautiful parts of Glasgow were harmed in making that bad idea into concrete reality, and it doesn't work particularly well as a motorway system. And the idea that you can go past Townhead at 30 miles an hour is just a dream for most people who have to commute it at rush hour. Because apart from Friday, you can do it on Friday because no one goes to work on Fridays anymore. Flexi time and working at home. You could, if you're going to visit Glasgow, do it on a Friday because there's no traffic. The idea that we're going to solve this was Green Party driven and SNP party driven dogma which is actually about locking people in place and impoverishing and reducing and making smaller their lives, that this will somehow overcome the problems that the same ideology created a generation or two previously. This is fanciful. It's not going to solve anything. It's just going to create more problems. And we're talking about a philosophy of ungrowth. We're talking about a philosophy of everybody getting poorer. They don't talk about it openly, but when you dig into the literature, that's where it's coming from.
Yeah.
Yep. And the last thing, very, very quickly, Humza Yousaf's Scottish Government's new solution to drug deaths. So people inject these poisons into themselves and die. And their solution is that they're going to provide state facilities for people to inject these poisons into themselves. And this is going to solve the problem. Is that going to work, do you think?
The idea that that taking drugs is safe. It's just having the word drugs and safe even in the same sentence is it's horrendous. We should be promoting absolute abstinence from all drugs. I think it sends the wrong message to the youth, to the existing addicts, to everyone in society. It just sends the wrong message. I can't believe they've went and undertaken this. It's madness. I mean, you've seen the like, say, San Francisco and stuff like that, where it is like a scene for The Walking Dead. I don't want that happening to Glasgow. I mean, it's as bad enough as it is.
Yeah, absolutely. David?
Well, it came from Portland and places like this, and it's failed there. And they say this is going to be great. This is a wonderful This is a wonderful day for Scotland. We're going to do all this good for the people on drugs. And okay, well, show me the evidence. Show me the evidence that this will. Firstly, show me the evidence that this will work long term. Because the last thing that they introduced was from Portugal. And it's been a tremendous success in Portugal, and it hadn't been. It had been initially. This was the decriminalisation of drugs. It was a temporary, brief reduction in some crime rate, which then spiked to much higher levels as the policy worked out its inevitable failure. Yeah. And this will be the same. Show me the long-term success. Show me the comparison. There's no data. It's just everyone knows that this is going to be the case.
I mean, the idea that an addict would like to go to one of these rooms is a joke in itself, right? I mean, an addict's going to go and they're going to take their drugs in their own home or their own domicile, wherever it is, anywhere but the safe room. It's just the whole thing's such a joke.
And it's very interesting how it's been put forward, because the Lord Advocate, a very shady office, there's no oversight, there's no transparency in whatever the Lord Advocate does. The Lord Advocate's come and said, well, we're just not going to prosecute this. Yeah. So the law remains, but the law doesn't remain in a funny kind of way, because the Lord Advocate says. So this is the nature. So this is not a democratic process. This hasn't been debated in Parliament. And this is the Lord Advocate has had a word round the cabinet table, and they've decided, yes, we're going to push this policy. And we've now changed the law in effect, but not in reality, because reality doesn't matter anymore. Very strange. And it's going to be, it's the unintended consequences, which the rest of society, and indeed the people they're trying to help, will have to bear. It won't be the politicians that will have to bear the consequences.
This way of this way of changing the law without changing the law, that's what's happened to the age of consent. The age of consent in Scotland is 13 because of the same sort of thing. But the thing I feel discriminated against. I mean, if these people break the law and then the Scottish Government provides them with a safer facility, I sometimes drive my car a bit too fast. So I think they should build a race circuit for me somewhere.
Why not?
So I could do it more safely.
Maybe the outside lane of the M8. So the inside lane can be all the SNP people, and they can wear masks while driving and do 30 miles an hour, and you get to do like 95. In an old top sports car.
That's what happens when you bring great minds together to come up with policy ideas.
Because
that was brilliant, gentlemen. If you want to see more of David, tune into UK Column. You can find that online. If you want to see more of Niall, just be in Rutherglen or Hamilton West, because he's everywhere. Do come and help with the campaign. Just to finish, you can come and help the campaign tomorrow, 12 till 2, Rutherglen High Street. Thursday, we're doing some leafleting, knocking on doors. we're meeting at the Cambuslang Citizens Advice Bureau at 10 a.m. Friday, 12 till 2 on the High Street in Rutherglen. Saturday, 11 till 4 on the High Street in Rutherglen. So it'd be great to see you if you could come along and help, or even if you just come along and say hello. We would love to see you.
Well, it's been brilliant. Thanks very much, gents.
Yeah, thank you very much. Really enjoyed that. Thanks everyone for watching. Thanks for your comments as well. And see you next week.
Thank you.